Hey guys, welcome back to Big Shoulders, the Chicago podcast. Sorry we've been away for a bit, holidays and all that kind of slowed us down, but I wanted to get back at it now that we're in the new year officially. And today I kind of wanted to just kind of do a quick one in terms of uh, some top 10 do's when visiting Chicago. And this is by no mean an exhaustive list. Some of them are musts. Some of them are just stuff that I'm feeling right now. The stuff that I will do with family when they come into the city, and you know that type of thing. We've done two episodes so far that really lay out the great food, the places that are musts of Chicago food. So there's a whole lot to do, believe it or not, other than eat and drink in Chicago. Although that's not a bad thing to do. It's one of the biggest things, most important things you can do when visiting the city of Chicago. But yeah, I wanted to kind of go down this list that I put together, but also, in terms of family that love the city and love to visit and so forth, wanted to share this with you guys to give you kind of, I guess, what would be a great start in terms of any trip that you were going to make to the city, whether you are coming from out of state, out of country, or from the suburbs or other states. But number 10, and again, these aren't in any particular order. So number 10 is actually super important. I think it's as important as number one, and that is to get a CTA pass. You have options with CTA. And one of the best things about Chicago is if you are flying into O'Hare Airport, you have access to the Blue Line. You have access to get your CTA passes there. If you're flying into Midway Airport on the south side, you have the Orange Line, where you can also purchase your CTA passes. CTA passes cover the L trains or elevated trains that are also subways, but it also covers bus. And you should not be afraid of either one of them. They're really reliable, they're really clean, regardless of what you've been told. As somebody who has boots on the ground on the regular in Chicago, again, I jump back and forth from there on the West Coast because of the work that I do. But yeah, you have no worries in that regard of trains and buses. You can get a CTA 1 day pass for $5. That's like right when you get off, really, if you get there to ORD or Midway. And you can get a 3 day pass for $15, 7 day pass for $20, which is, I think, one of the best deals. Even if you're not there for 7 days, grab yourself a 7 day pass, um, or a 30 day pass for $75. These are totally worthwhile. Chicago is a city where only 30% of Chicago residents actually own a car. You don't really need it. I tell people, whatever you do when visiting the city of Chicago, do not rent a car. Get yourself a CTA pass, ride the rails, ride the trains, and for God's sake, walk. We are one of the most walkable cities in North America. Plenty of beautiful brick buildings, beautiful neighborhoods, beautiful people. So don't deprive yourself of that. Number 10 is walk around Millennium Park and the lakefront. Millennium Park is relatively new. It isn't something that's always been there. And Chicago has one of the oldest park systems in the country. It really kind of came up starting, I guess, turn of the last century. And, Chicago is known as a city in a garden. And it's really true because almost all of our neighborhoods have some kind of parks, some of them really large. And start downtown, start in Millennium Park. There's the lakefront to walk from, whether you're more north, downtown, south. We have a beautiful lakefront, Lake Michigan. And yeah, definitely get your steps in. Chicago, again, is a city where you can really walk around, enjoy, grab yourself a coffee, walk around with your family, your loved ones, all that. But yeah, Millennium Park and the lakefront downtown. Number 9, Michigan Avenue. Michigan Avenue, also known as the Magnificent Mile, is kind of like our main stretch. There's lots of obviously walking you can do. There's shopping, there's restaurants, there's cafe, there's bars. There's so much. It's a hub of economic activity. You have at the very northern tip, you have the Gold Coast and Lincoln Park, and it goes all the way down to the south side, depending on how far you want to walk. You have everything from at the sort of the bookended downtown would be the Hancock Center to the north, and then you have the Sears Tower, also known as the Willis Tower, on the south. So those are kind of like the the bookend landmarks of downtown. But yeah, definitely hang around Magnificent Mile. Don't spend too much time there, but it is something you should do. Spend some time downtown. There's great restaurants. There's great food. Again, it's beautiful. We have the various parks and so on. It's a nice spot. Number seven is Chinatown, and I could easily put in Greek Town or Little Italy in here as well. Little Italy and Greek Town have shrunk a bit since I was coming up. That's as demographic changes. There's spots you should absolutely go to. We talk about in the previous two episodes all the great Greek food and Italian food that Chicago has. So you definitely owe it to yourself to hit those neighborhoods and check those places out. It should be noted that Greek food and Italian food is pretty spread out in Chicago. You can find decent examples of both of those cuisines throughout the city. But Chinatown in particular has been one of my favorite spots in Chicago since I was a little kid. We actually have two halves of Chinatown. You have what is called Old Chinatown, which really starts at, as we spoke about in a previous episode, Rico Benny's, which is a Chicago institution known for their Italian breaded steak sandwich, once voted one of the best sandwiches in the world. You start at Rico Benny's, you simply turn the corner and start walking north, and you walk right into Old Chinatown. And Old Chinatown, last I was there, seems to be cleaner and more active than I remember it in a long time. And it was just fun. The younger generation, the kids, the young folks have moved in there, and they're adding boba shops and dumpling restaurants and all of that. So you owe it to yourself to start there. Bakeries, really just cool stuff in Old Chinatown. As you make your way north through Old Chinatown, you'll basically walk up into what is now called, or has been called probably since the 90s, New Chinatown Square or New Chinatown. New Chinatown came up, I think, maybe 30 years ago now. So it's a bit younger than the adequately mentioned Old Chinatown. But you have even more restaurants. You have more tea shops. You have some really great lounges. Nine Bar is one of my favorite lounges, not just in Chinatown, not just in Chicago, but in the world. It is the only bar that I know of in the world that is styled after the movie Blade Runner, and it's beautiful. Even if you're a non-drinker, obviously you can get. I'm not much of a drinker, but their non-alcoholic drinks are great too. But check that out. Again, you have Nine Bar, you've got Kim Ki, you've got Lao Sichuan, you have so many, Three Happiness, you have these amazing restaurants and other spots in Chinatown that are a lot of fun. It's cool to just walk around, get yourself a boba, get yourself a tea, and just walk around Chinatown, whether it's spring, summer, fall or winter. It's just a fun, active spot with a lot of energy. It's a youthful energy. Chicago has, for the longest time, been one of the youngest cities in terms of demographics. I think something like 50 to 60% of our population is under age 40. So there's always something going on. There's a great vibe and energy, not just to Chinatown, but to the city in general. But Chinatown is something you should check out. You exit these. There's literally a Chinatown stop on the Red Line, Cermak Chinatown. Maybe check that out before you head south to Sox and 35th for a White Sox game. Check that out. Number 6, Evanston and the North Shore. For those of you who don't know, Evanston is kind of it's the home one of Northwestern University, but it's sort of the beginning of you've got Evanston, Kenilworth, Wilmette. These stretch of cities just to the north of Chicago are spots where the great John Hughes, the great Chicago filmmaker, did a lot of his movies. And so I have a cousin who I keep telling him he needs to start doing tours. He does an amazing tour of the North Shore, not just the filming locations for the John Hughes films, but you also have the Baha'i Temple. Northwestern University campus itself is really pretty, is beautiful, is worth it's a good walk. But just beautiful homes, beautifully maintained areas up there. Maybe start in Evanston, North Shore, and then head all the way down Sheridan into the city, down Lakeshore Drive, DuSable Drive. and spend some time north side and then downtown. Number five, and this is probably, I put this up there with getting a CTA pass and a couple other things that I think are musts. CTA pass are musts, but this other one is the Frank Lloyd Wright Tour. If you want to know anything about Chicagoans, we, in addition to food and drink, one of our other most important religions of sorts is architecture. Chicago is a great cross section, an example of the greats of not just 19th century, but 20th century architecture. Everyone from Mies van der Rohe to Frank Lloyd Wright to the Brutalist to Gothic styles, mid-century modern, Marina Towers, and so forth. It's really, really worth it. But in particular, the Frank Lloyd Wright Tour, which takes place in Oak Park, so that's west Chicago. You hop on, I believe it's the Green Line, blanking here, and it's the last stop. You literally, if you're staying downtown or you're staying near west, near north, near south, you can hop down into the loop, hop on the Green Line, head it, take it to the end. And Oak Park, beautiful little city, again, right on the outskirts of Chicago city limits. It has a beautiful downtown itself, but go for the Frank Lloyd Wright Tour. And I should say tours because there's multiple tours. You can do the tour of Frank Lloyd Wright's home and studio. There are the neighborhood tours in that particular area. You have the Unity Temple, which was the church that he created. You also have the Roby House, which is one of my favorites. I kind of love them all. It's hard. It's like picking between your children in terms of what I like, in terms of the Frank Lloyd Wright stuff. But Chicago, if in terms of the tent poles of Chicago culture, food and drink is one, architecture is another, and the Frank Lloyd Wright Tour in Oak Park is an absolute must. Make a day of it, and then you could just maybe a few blocks away, just walk right into downtown Oak Park. They have incredible food, or Mediterranean, Italian, contemporary American, you name it, they have it. It's a good time in Oak Park. So definitely check out the Frank Lloyd Wright tours that are there. Number four, Wrigley Field and Sox Park. I have to admit, I think that the Chicago Cubs have probably a bigger fan base, countrywide, worldwide, than the Sox do. And Wrigleyville is a fun neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years that I've been going back and forth between Chicago and the West Coast. But I think it's only gotten better. It's even cleaner than it was before. Chicago overall is an extremely clean city. It's one consistent compliment that I've always received when people visit my city. And Wrigley is no exception. There's great barbecue joints there. Obviously, Chicago street food. I believe there's an Al's there. But check out Wrigleyville. Check out Wrigley Field. Take in a Cubs game. But if you're staying further south, I would encourage you to do the same. Go to Sox Park. Also, U.S. Cellular Field, or is it no Guaranteed Rate Field? We just call it Sox Park. And check out the White Sox. Again, great food at both of the parks. Chicago does sports really well. We're a sports town. We have a really healthy sports culture. So definitely take in a game, assuming it's baseball season when you're there. Number three is a spot that I have really been spending a lot more time in as a former North Sider. Actually, I was born a South Sider, then was on the North Side for a really long time, and now I'm sort of beginning my West Side stage of my life. So I'm on the West Side now, and my family that comes in from California, the trips that we take into the city, we spend a lot of time on the West Side, and so it's everywhere from Humboldt Park to Fulton Market. And Fulton Market in Near West is the one that I really, really want to recommend. Fulton Market has really become, and maybe it's just because it's on my radar now, and it's something that I'm doing. I'm not a South or North Side snob anymore, spending time on the West Side. Fulton Market is awesome. Fulton Market, again, restaurants, lounges, cafes, bars. You have Au Cheval, which in the previous two episodes, Joe and I talked about Small Cheval, which, as far as I'm concerned, I think are the best burgers and fries, not just in the city of Chicago, but in the country. And I will put them up against anyone, hands down. I have met people from East Coast, West Coast, Canada, international, that have come and eaten Small Cheval, which are the satellite restaurants of Au Cheval, and they just do burgers and fries, and they blow it out of the water. But Au Cheval, which is the mother restaurant there in Fulton Market, which is near West Side, Chicago, is fantastic too. You can get their amazing burgers, which again, I just you don't take my word for it. On your trip to Chicago, go to Au Cheval. But they have other great stuff too. Everything they do is top notch. It is elevated American fare, basically, and there's I've never seen anybody do it better. I mean, I'm sure I'll come up with 5 examples as soon as I turn this, as soon as we wrap. But Au Cheval is a must. If you're in Fulton Park, you're on the west side, you're in Chicago, you need to check them out. You have my nieces and nephews love to visit this spot in Fulton Market. It is McDonald's University slash International McDonald's. And what's fun about this, and is you basically get an opportunity. Their menu changes. Some things remain, and some things are swapped in and out. But if you want to try what they're serving at McDonald's in Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Brazil, you'll get those specific regional items available to you at McDonald's University International McDonald's there in Fulton Park. So just kind of fun. Again, in terms of the food and the quality of food that you can find in Chicago, it's more of a novelty than anything. It's fast food. It is what it is. So yeah, don't spend too much time there because you've got so much more to experience in Chicago. So yeah, you've got Au Cheval, McDonald's University. There's a Levain's Bakery there, and I'm not a sweets guy at all. But these cookies that look like you just took a handful of cookie dough and just threw it in the oven and baked it. I love those. Those are pretty good. They've got amazing coffee. Again, you can get a great cup of coffee in Chicago, and I mean like mom and pop owned joints that brew dark matter coffee, which is one of Chicago's big brands, all over the place. Definitely check out any mom and pop cafe like you would the restaurants. Get yourself a Levain's cookie and enjoy. Number one, and again, or I'm sorry, number two, not there yet. Number two, this goes up there with a CTA pass, the Frank Lloyd Wright tours, and this is the other one, the holy trinity of things you absolutely have to do when visiting Chicago. And this is so CTA pass, Frank Lloyd Wright tours, architectural boat tour downtown. The architectural boat tour is a perfect introduction, not just to downtown, but along our river, the Chicago River downtown. You have it's almost like this perfect showcase of all of the different types of architecture that Chicago has, beginning from since before we were founded as a city, all the way through to modern day. You have the Mies van der Rohe style. You have the mid-century modern Marina Towers. You have the beautiful new skyscrapers created by Jeannie Gang downtown. You've got in the last 10 years, I think they put up 5 new skyscrapers downtown, going back to Art Deco buildings. Was it the Carbon and Carbide building, which I believe is styled after a champagne bottle? You have the iconic Wrigley building that has been there, since the 20s. You have what used to be called the Chicago Tribune Tower, which is a beautiful piece of Gothic architecture. So you have it all, right down there. And again, to really immerse yourself and to understand what makes Chicago and Chicagoans tick, you absolutely have to do that architectural boat tour downtown. That's a must, along with any Frank Lloyd Wright tours. And obviously, when you land, first things first, get that CTA pass. And number one, drum roll, please. Eat. It's the whole point of going. I mean, every single trip that my family has taken to Chicago, that my family coming from out of state, from the suburbs, you want to experience the food. And again, you have previous two episodes. Joey and I go over all of the stuff, all the options that you have, and obviously it's impossible to get it all in one trip. But just as a quick reminder, you want to hit the Chicago classics. You've got the Chicago style hot dog. You've got the Chicago style Italian beef sandwich. You've got Chicago style tavern pizza. Everyone thinks that we only eat deep dish. We rarely eat deep dish. We eat it, but we eat it for graduation, first communion, birthdays, quinceañeras, special occasion pizza, because it's big. One slice will do you. 98% of the time outside of that, we're eating our thin crust, cut into squares, tavern style pizza that I have yet to introduce anybody to, and they dislike. You can get great tavern style pizza all over the city. I would recommend taking the trip to the South Side and going to the oldest pizzeria in Chicago, Vito and Nick's on 94th. But yeah, so Chicago style hot dogs, Italian beef, tavern style pizza, the small cheval burgers and fries, gyros. I could spend a day or two in Greektown alone, but gyros will usually do me. And the gyros, like the other Chicago street foods, are available everywhere. It's hard to get bad food in Chicago. Does it happen? Sure, but you can do it. Pizza puffs. This is another thing that Joey and I talked about previous episodes. The pizza puff is something that I thought existed everywhere, and I remember I was Northern California hanging out with the nephews, and I was like, yeah, well, mommy, I know you guys are making, you guys like a Hot Pockets. We should go get a pizza puff. I'm like, what? I'm like, a pizza puff. And it never occurred to me this entire time that pizza puffs don't really exist outside of Chicago. A pizza puff is this beautiful, sort of deep fried square pocket, not a Hot Pocket. It's much lighter. You don't have nearly as much of that breading. Not quite a phyllo dough, but also not Pop-Tart, filled with name your pizza toppings, and they're absolutely delicious. You can get them at most places. You can get them at Al's. I think you can get them at Portillo's. You can get them any real Chicago joint. The Hat, I love the Hat. If you can find yourself the Hat anywhere in Chicago, you literally have the perfect sort of smorgasbord of Chicago classic food, Chicago street food. Oh, a lot of people don't know this either, and I argue with my California family all the time that California isn't the only place that has Mexican food. Chicago has incredible Mexican food. We have kind of two strongholds of Mexican culture in Chicago. I mean, Mexican people are spread throughout Chicago, just like the Poles and the Germans and the Italians and the Greeks, everybody. But you have the Pilsen neighborhood, which historically was Czech, German, and has been Mexican as long as I've been alive. And just incredible food in Pilsen. There's also Little Village, which might not be as accessible as Pilsen is, depending on where you're staying, but both are incredible. Two of my favorite neighborhoods in the city, and the food is amazing, just amazing. Also, like I mentioned, you've got coffee all over, so coffee. And again, if you're doing this right, you should be walking 10 to 12. I mean, I shouldn't say this. I walk 12 to 15 miles a day with my family when we're doing our thing in Chicago. And if you're eating all this food, it would behoove you to again get that pass and walk around, because you never know. You walk block after block after block, find a great restaurant, have a bite, and then just keep walking. We once walked from near west, or maybe a little further than near west, not quite far west yet, all the way to downtown. And we worked up such an appetite. We went to La Briola, got some tavern style pizza, and then we walked back. And we were in Humboldt Park and got a jibarito. And that's my next recommendation. The jibarito is a Puerto Rican sandwich that has a similar history to the Chicago style Italian beef. The Italian beef in Chicago didn't come from Italy, but it was created by Italians. Just like the Maxwell Street Polish isn't necessarily from Poland, but it was created in Chicago, partially by Poles. But the jibarito is a Puerto Rican sandwich that some people will compare maybe to a Cuban, and you can get these. I like to get them in Humboldt Park, because Humboldt Park, another one of my favorite spots in Chicago, is historically our Puerto Rican stronghold neighborhood, our sort of mecca of Puerto Rican culture. And the jibarito is basically, instead of bread, they take plantains, and they sort of fry the plantains, because that's going to be what our bread is. It will stand in for the bread. And then you have your choice of beef or pork or both. And that's sort of put into the sandwich along with lettuce, tomato, mayo. And on top of the top part of the sandwich, the other plantain bun, they put crushed garlic. And so I like extra. I like to kind of have them put it inside of it too. And there's other sauces that obviously you can throw on there as well. Dude, it is so good. So definitely, in addition to your Chicago style Italian beef, your hot dog, your pizza puff, your Maxwell Street Polish, make sure, and your gyros, make sure that you get a jibarito. I think it's one that's not as well known if you're not from the city. Also, in terms of South Side, if you like soul food, or if you've never had soul food, go down south, go into Bronzeville, go into the neighborhoods on the south side, and you will get some of the most amazing soul food you've ever had in your life. It's really, really authentic and good down there. The south side, Bronzeville in particular, is known as our Black metropolis, and so it is a beautiful, again, a mecca of Black culture in Chicago. I also would throw in, if you're going to be doing museums, and you should, the DuSable Museum of African American History. It's something that, it doesn't matter whether you're African American or not. It's African American history being American history. It's really important, and it's one of my favorite museums. So add that to the Art Institute of Chicago and all these other spots that you should check out. Let me see. Is there? I think we've covered it all. Yeah, that's my quick kind of top 10 must dos of Chicago. Again, the big three: getting a CTA pass, so you do not rent a car, and don't take rideshare everywhere. If you're out late and you don't feel like walking 7 blocks home, like I will make my family do, obviously get yourself a rideshare. But CTA pass, the Frank Lloyd Wright tours in Oak Park, and absolutely the architectural boat tour in downtown Chicago are musts. From there, again, you guys have, we're 3 episodes in. We've covered a lot of food in different locations and restaurants. So mix those up however you want. And there's very little that you can do in terms of messing up your food options in Chicago, because there's so much of it, and so much of it is so good. But yeah, so I hope this helps you guys. If there's anything I miss, and I'm sure the minute we're done, I'm going to remember, oh, I should have talked about that. But please let us know. We're really trying hard to grow this channel with the other pods. So please like, subscribe, share, and comment. What are some future neighborhoods you'd like us to cover? My goal for this pod in particular is to actually go into the neighborhoods. Joey and I are, we're psychos about Chicago. We are true ambassadors of the city. And so my goal, in addition to talking about all this stuff, is to actually go in and physically show you guys these different places. And as we grow as a channel, if you can help us grow with likes, subscriptions, shares, comments, that will allow us to start, vlogging and doing visits and all that. So any help you can throw our way, any support, we appreciate. But I hope this list, again, helps you guys if you've not been to the city, or if you have been and you haven't done some of these things, give it a shot. I think you'll be very pleased. So thank you guys for watching. Again, Big Shoulders. I'm Kyle, and have a great day. Thanks again. Bye.